In the previous video, we looked at the volatility screener to decide which stocks had expensive or cheap options. In this video, we're going to see what to do next, and also how those predictions might be linked with our stock portfolios. So a good case study, which I'll take you through now, would be if we own a stock. Well, what kind of stocks have I said we're going to own? We like to own value stocks, so let's restrict ourselves to high value. Now, we also like to own small cap stocks, but we've seen in the past that sometimes it can be very tricky to trade small cap stocks, and this is even more so when we're dealing with options. So I'm going to stick purely into stocks in the largest 60%. So these would be roughly equivalent to the Russell 3000. Now, I own this stock. Let's say it's a high value stock that I've already bought, and I'm looking to try and sell a covered call on it. So now, given I own it, I know it's a good stock to sell covered calls on because it's a value stock, and value stocks are almost always overpriced in terms of volatility. But now we're going to be a little more picky. I'm going to look for things with a high idiosyncratic volatility as well. Now I want a good term structure slope. So something interesting just happened here. You see, when we're restricting ourselves to things with a high term structure slope, we're typically also looking at things with a cheap implied volatility premium. This is good because this means that these are heavily anti-correlated, and we're going to be looking at places where most people aren't. Remember, most people are just looking at this part of the curve, and we're looking at more predictive things in different areas that other people aren't. So finally, I'm just going to screen over low absolute momentum and see what I'm left. Okay, one stock stands out here as something that seems to be a winner in all regards. And this is something that has a good implied volatility premium as well. So this stock is GSH, a stock I know very little about. It looks like a Chinese transportation company. It scores well on all of the implied volatility factors. So this would be a very good stock for me to look at selling covered calls on. To find the exact call you should be considering selling, I would recommend going to my white paper on selling covered calls. At this point, you're going to have to go and look at your own option trading system to see what the options look like in this stock. Instead of doing that, here I'm going to go to Yahoo Finance. So once you've read my white paper, you'll see that the stock option that's normally best to sell is something close to the at-the-money in the front month. So here, I'd probably be looking at selling the 2250 calls. If we notice that the current price in them is 35 cents at 70. Now I know based on my analysis that the midpoint of that is a good sale. So what I'd be trying to do now would be trying to sell something around 55. So the next thing I would do is put an offer in at 55 and hope I'd get sold. Hope I'd be lifted. One of the problems we're going to have here though is that there's practically no volume or open interest in this stock. This is something we'll be putting a filter in for very soon, but at this point you just know if you get filled, it's a good trade. I wouldn't recommend crossing the bid-ask spread on this, but there's no hard and fast rule about that. It's also entirely possible to use our option screener to find underpriced stocks. So if you're looking to buy puts or buy calls, puts maybe as a hedge, calls possibly as a speculative play, you can also do this using the screener. And just like the stock screener, you can put in a particular stock and see how that scores. So here I'll put in a popular stock, Apple. So just looking at Apple, we see that it's a growth stock with a score of only 19. So it's possibly not a stock I would have owned to start with. And if I did own it, I probably wouldn't want to be selling covered calls on it based on the value factor. Similarly, for the size factor, this doesn't look like it's a good sale. Idiosyncratic vol, similar. IV premium, similar. Absolute momentum, it's kind of in the middle of the park. In fact, the only thing here that makes it look like a good volatility sale would be the term structure slope. So Apple, right now, would be a poor candidate for selling a covered call. On the other hand, if you owned Apple, it may be worth considering buying puts. So that's a simple introduction to our option screener. I hope that helps you when you're looking for options to trade.